I get shit done, I have fun. It's my time and I'm the one. I'm breaking through.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business Renovator. I'm your host, Coach Phil. Today we're going to talk about the power of networking and connecting the dots on your journey to success. I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with my guest today. He's an esteemed individual, very powerful and passionate about networking. But before we get into that, here's a couple of things I would like to say thank you if you're watching live today. That's terrific. And if you happen to catch us on the replay, just go #replay. Let us know where you're listening in from. And if you have a question or a comment, share that with us as well. And last but not least, if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, that would be greatly appreciated. I want to do a shameless plug for me, what I do, and I'm self-sponsored. So here we go. Here's a soundbite from my sponsor. So if you're an entrepreneur, business owner with a question, or if you'd like to check where you're at in terms of your growth with your business, reach out. It's free. Go to thecoachphil.ca in the top right-hand corner of the website. You'll be able to click on a link and fill in the assessment. And if you want to go beyond that and have a question answered, we can certainly set up a time to do it. It's a complimentary session. 30 minutes with a coach. And if I don't have the answer to your coach, guess what? I'm associated with a number of coaches around the globe with all sorts of different experiences. So let's have a conversation. Let's get into what we're here for today. The power of networking, connecting the dots on your journey to success. My guest today works to empower small businesses, help them achieve more, helping them create dynamic professional relationships. He does this by operating a membership-based referral program called AmSpirit Business Connection, and shares insightful content via his podcasts, articles, and his book. Learn all about Frank, and I'm going to give you his URL later on, but it's frankagin.com, frankagin.com, but I'll share it with you so it'll be in the replay here as well. Frank is the president of AmSpirit Business Connection, which empowers entrepreneurs, sales representatives, and professionals to become successful through networking. He also hosts the Networking RX podcast, which has insights and interviews related to better business relationships. Finally, Frank is the author of several books, including Foundational Networking. Please help me welcome him. Give me a virtual applause, standing ovation for my friend, Frank. Here he comes as soon as I click on the button. Welcome, Frank.
Phil, you are big time. I mean, you got music, you have everything. I knew when you invited me in, I didn't think it would be low rent or anything, but I mean, you're big time. This is good. Thank you.
I appreciate that. That's very nice for you to say. I know that you don't throw stuff out lightly, so I greatly appreciate that. So we decided that we're going to talk about the power of networking, connecting the dots on your journey to success. You've probably heard Steve Jobs or read it or saw it somewhere that he says you can't join the dots looking forward, but looking back you can to see where they are. You're going to break that paradigm because you're all about building the connections to the people moving forward, aren't you?
Yeah, certainly. I think what Steve Jobs is saying is you don't know where they're going, right? You can look back and you can see where they're at, and I don't know that I'm any different. I don't have any revelations, but I don't know. I guess we'll just jump into it.
Okay, we'll just jump right on into it. So how did you get started into what you're doing with AmSpirit?
Yeah, it's I live in Columbus, Ohio, in the middle part of the United States for our Canadian friends or people listening abroad. I came to Columbus, Ohio in the mid 80s to go to law school. Not from here. I grew up in Michigan, came here to go to law school. I have a law degree and an MBA from the Ohio State University. Couple great degrees that led me into a wonderful job in public accounting as a tax consultant. I worked for one of the large public accounting firms, which is now PricewaterhouseCoopers, and worked with companies helping them with tax strategies. It was a great job. It was great pay, great bosses, great colleagues, great everything. I just didn't want to do taxes for the rest of my life. So after about 6.5 years, I left and went into private practice. I was always very entrepreneurial and I wanted to kind of see where that would go. And so I went out into private practice, and I tell people that a funny thing happened when I went into private practice. And the funny thing was that nothing happened. I had no idea how to get clients. When you go to school, they don't teach you these sorts of things. When you get into a firm, they really don't teach you these sorts of things. The big firm I was in, they had the work, just come on in and do the work. And it doesn't work that way in our worlds, Phil. It's small business America. You got to get out there and you've got to find things. Well, I really had no clue as to what I was doing. And somebody suggested to me I get into a tips club or a leads group. And I really had no idea what they were talking about. But there are organizations out there like BNI, like LaTip, that bring together entrepreneurs, sales reps, professionals in a weekly setting where they learn about each other and exchange referrals. Well, that wasn't in Columbus, but there was an organization out of Pittsburgh. I was introduced to it. It made total sense as to how it worked, that I could help other people, or I could help myself. I could lift my whole world up by helping other people. So I really doubled down on it and make a long story much shorter. In the early 2000s, I had an opportunity to buy it, and I did. And I rebranded it as AmSpirit Business Connections.
Fantastic.
Stopped practicing law and just really work with entrepreneurs, sales reps, professionals, and helping them become more successful through the connections around them.
I've walked your path a little bit. I didn't create a franchise. I had the thought, and then I had a saboteur voice in my head say, "Yeah, but who do that?" Obviously, you did. I used to have a group. I ran it and facilitated. I was mentored in the process of doing it and how to do it, and by two lovely female entrepreneurs that were mentoring me. And I ran it for 5 years, and it was game changing. Becoming the hub in your sphere of influence, people always reached out to me, even if I didn't have an answer to their question. It gave me some reason to go find somebody and say, I know somebody who's looking for something like what you're doing. Can you tell me more about it? And man, it just opened up the doors. I learned how to dance, the house I'm in, the business I've started. I have a software product that has nothing to do with business coaching or business renovations. Right. It's oil and gas directional drilling. That all came from connecting the dots and being part of a network. So that's one of the reasons why I'm excited that you're here, because it allows me to learn more from you and kind of reminisce of my own experiences of my personal networking.
Well, and I'm not one to, I don't want to oversell the value of what I do, but is there anything in life that doesn't, any success in life that doesn't involve somebody else? Somebody sharing an idea? There isn't. And so our relationships, and again, you don't need to get into an organization like AmSpirit Business Connections or BNI or anything. You don't have to be in these organizations, but you do need relationships to be successful. And that's what people need to understand. You can't be this lone ranger and be successful.
Well, think about how we met.
Yeah. Bob Berg. So Bob Berg. Yeah.
It's another networking group, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he has the philosophy, I think, that resonates with both you and I. That's why we're there. And that was to show up and give, not show up and take.
Yep.
You're not here to pitch. You're here to earn the right to make relationships and make connections and have solid connections to the dots. And the dots are representing the people within our network.
Yeah.
And it's called networking, not net funning, although the side effect of networking is a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. Well,
Right?
you learned to dance. I mean, there's a story there. But you know what? But there's a lesson there too, in that people get out and develop relationships. Where they network, which is the art of developing relationships, and they have this tunnel vision that it's supposed to lead to something financial, and in reality, a lot of times it doesn't. But there's still a tremendous value to it.
Yeah.
So it's
Yep.
just you need to get out
Yesterday,
there and do it.
it must have been on Bob's session yesterday where I met. Yeah, it was there. I have another opportunity. I have another guest coming, and he's all about serving and helping other people. And he gets such a charge out of helping the others. As soon as he started talking like that, I thought, man, we need to stay connected, and I would like him to be on the show. So I said to him in my crazy Chris Voss sort of way, would it be crazy of me to ask you to? And he said, no, not at all. So he's going to be a guest on the show later this year.
Well, good.
Joining the dots.
There you go. Yeah.
Making connections. So what are some of the things that you found to be valuable as a networker? What would you share with the other people?
Well, I mean, you kind of touched on it, and I think a lot of people say, I know Bob Berg says it. I mean, for people out there, if you are watching, listening to the replay, get Bob Berg's book, The Go Giver.
Oh, absolutely.
I was talking to somebody yesterday, and they didn't know really. They were just mentioning it. I'm trying to live that book, and I just said, well, I'm going to be on a call with Bob here later. But the notion is just find ways to help other people, find ways to add value to other people. And what I want to throw in there is something beyond what it is you sell. Years ago, I had a conversation with somebody who was a mortgage lender. He says, well, I give all the time. I give people discounts and cut fees and do stuff like that. I said, that's great. That's great business. But it's not really adding value to people. It's strategy, it's tactics with respect to closing a deal or serving your clients. But what the mortgage lender ought to do is, hey, I know you're buying the house, or you're doing this renovation or whatever it is. I've got some resources that you can use to get that fixed up. Or maybe it's something totally, back to your thing, looking to have some fun. I took dance lessons. You should take these dance lessons. We may never get your loan done, but you're going to learn to dance. So it's find ways to help other people. And that's really the beginning and the end of it. And if you can embrace that and find ways to serve the community around you, get involved, volunteer, things like that, it's amazing what will come back to you.
Yeah, my head's down because I'm writing notes.
Okay.
I've got my video coach, live coach in my head, and he'd be saying, Bill, keep looking at the camera.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
But having somebody like that in your corner, it has improved the way I do things here. I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm attempting to make this experience for our audience informative, a bit of lightheartedness, because that's kind of my nature. I don't like to take things too seriously, because if we can't have fun while we're doing business, why do the business, is my mantra.
Well, I think that's part of being authentic. That's who you are.
Yeah.
I record podcasts, and I will use, it's not even a word, I will say a lot.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I would edit all those things out. I would go back and edit all those things out. And I was talking to somebody, and they said, well, how much time do you spend on podcasting? Well, before I send it off to production, I like to clean those things out, and that might take me, a 20-minute podcast, that might take me 40 minutes to go through and listen. And they kind of chided me, and they said, I don't think you should do that. You saying, it's just you. When I hear you talk, I hear you saying that. And it's not because you're dumb. It's because you're searching for the right word. And that's just you. So just be you.
Yeah, I like that. I remember learning that. Look, I just did one.
Just did what?
But what I learned
Oh,
was you can not speak English very good. English is your second language. If you've got a story or a message that's heartfelt, people will ignore the so's, the ums, the whatever.
yeah.
There's a really good example. Here comes some authenticity. I watch America's Got Talent, and there
Oh,
was
yeah.
there was a girl that came up, and she had a speech impediment. She stutters, and when she got on, you could feel the audience, and I felt it for her as well. She tried to say, she came on and she said something, and it was, and then she said something, and then there was another deep pause, and then she said something, but she uses music and singing. When she gets into that state, it reminds me of somebody that was an old country singer. He had the same sort of thing. His stuttering was more obvious. Hers are large delays, but when she sang, she was beautiful. So,
Mhm.
and people gave her a standing ovation. So it doesn't matter so much about the ahs, the so's, and that's too much of it. I'm not going to say the name of the organization, but they focus on that versus getting us to tell the story from our heart and give the message that gets people leaning into what we're wanting to share with them. So,
Yeah.
so there's one there. So there's another one. So they just pop up.
Well,
I
they
don't.
do. Yeah. And again, it goes to authenticity, which
Yeah,
really dovetails back into the whole networking thing because you want people to know you, like you, and trust you.
yeah.
And if
Oh,
you're trying to be somebody that you're not, people can sense that.
yes.
And then they're leery. It's like, okay, if they're not that, then what are they really? So,
Spidey sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You said something earlier on that I think is very true in any industry, market segment. And it's like when you get through school, they don't teach you how to be an entrepreneur, a marketer, or a seller. And quite often, people that have gone through academic training or even a trades training, they're great technicians, being a chiropractor, a lawyer, doctor, all those kind of things, or a plumber, um, carpenter, etc. When they get into business, they take those skills and do a great job of getting their message out. How do you do it? So having this skill set of networking is a great way to help them do that, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Once I figured it out, and I don't, I will never have it totally figured out.
No.
Right? Nobody will. Actually, I probably will, but they'll be on my deathbed. It's all clear to me. Then you die.
Yeah.
Um, that's just the way it works. But once I started understanding the framework that if you help other people, that they're predisposed to help you in return.
Yes.
It and it's not a perfect system, but once you're more likely. But once you understand that framework, it really opens the door for success because I can't control what other people are going to do for me. I can talk and talk and talk. I can't control it. But what I can control is what I do for them, what I do for other people. And if I can just lean into the things that I can control, and I'm sure this comes up all the time in your coaching, just focus on the things you can control. There's no
Yes.
sense in worrying about the things you can't control. So just focus on the things you can control, do your best, hope for the best with the things you can't control. And in the sense of building relationships, it's really finding ways to help other people. And when you find those ways to help other people, you set in motion powerful psychological forces where they want to help you in return. I just gave somebody a referral this past week, and eh, I, you know, I always tell people, Phil, that this is going to seem kind of random. I don't like coconut, right? But if you hand me an almond joy bar, which is like all coconut, I'm going to take it because I know somebody in my life likes coconut, will like that. Um, and it's the same thing with opportunity. Somebody comes to me and they have an opportunity, and this person had an opportunity, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. It wasn't anything I was interested in. Um, but I took him under my wing because I knew that there was somebody else in my network that thought would think it was great. And so I connected those dots using your metaphors or your analogy. Um, and the person I connected this first individual to recognize right away is going to be a great opportunity. And now I'm on his radar. What was the next words out of his mouth? How can I support you?
Right.
Right. How, and I just told him, I said, I don't keep score. If there's something, here's what I would like, but don't put pressure on yourself. Just keep these things in mind as you talk to other people. But the point I tried to drive home to him is, if I didn't give this to you, it would have been wasted. It would have been like the almond joy bar just sitting on the ground that I didn't pick up, or no, I don't want it. It was just going to waste. So it's not like I'm out nothing I'm out in email, big deal. I'm out nothing by making that connection.
Yeah.
But for that, I don't know what's going to come from it. And that's one of those wonderful, beautiful mysteries of life that, you've got some credits out there that they'll come to pass. I don't know when or how, but they'll come to pass.
Yeah, they will. I was writing a few points here that you didn't say these words, but this is what came up for me.
Okay.
And one is the law of reciprocity.
Sure.
You go into a restaurant or a store or an office and it has a double door for you, especially when you have winter conditions like we do in Canada sometimes. It's nice to have the two-door system. And if you've got two people get to the door almost the same, the first one opens the door for the second one, and the second one opens up the door for the first
Yeah.
one. Most of the time. You
Yep.
get the odd time where that doesn't happen, but really rarely. So that's the law of reciprocity. So it does come around eventually, maybe not immediately like that example, but like you're talking about, if you're doing it with the right intention, then things will show up in a good way, which is what the gentleman I met yesterday talked about a little bit. And Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough people get what they want, your purse will be filled with everything you want in life. So show up and serve. And then by doing what we're doing here today, even, we've opened up people's reticular activating system.
Yep.
And when we do the networking and serve others, even if, like when I was running the Winner Circle networking breakfast, I told people, when you do your 30-second infomercial, don't be disappointed if somebody doesn't lean in and buy what you are talking about. It's not about that. What it's about is planting a seed in the reticular activating system so that when they leave here today, they go out in their world, and somebody say, man, I got a problem or a challenge with this. You say, oh, I just met this guy a couple of weeks ago. I really liked what he was about.
Yeah.
Let me make an introduction. And man, it's such a powerful way to feel good in life without having to take anything pharmaceutical or otherwise.
Right.
That's what I got out of what you said.
No, I mean, it's very true. The Zig Ziglar quote I use often. And you need to listen to that quote or reread that quote real carefully, because he says, if you help enough people in life, you will get everything that you want. Now, the key part of that is if you help enough people. And so there are people out there who will do something. And it's like, I did something. I gave a referral here and I volunteered here. How come I don't have all I want? And it's like, you haven't done enough. You need to help enough people. And it's one of those great mysteries. How many is enough? I don't know. I don't know how big your dreams are. But you don't know what it's going to take. You don't know what the value of what you've given. It's not a mechanical tit for tat system, right?
No,
where you're putting money in a machine and getting a can of soda. And so you just need to focus on helping other people. And sometimes people aren't in the position to reciprocate because they don't understand, they don't have it. But it works its way back around to you eventually.
And what I like about what you're saying there is you're reminding all of us to don't do it with conditions attached to it. Do it with an unconditional supporting mechanism. Don't say, well, I've helped, like you're saying, there's no exact amount of contacts that if you help them out, you're going to get what you want. It just, Napoleon Hill says, you're going to be working at a pace that you think, why the hell am I doing this? Nothing's coming to fruition. And then you make the next connection, you get an introduction, and all of a sudden the abundance shows up, and it's like a tropical rainstorm. And you go, where the heck did all this come from? It came from all of the effort we did before that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I want to share some stuff because you're an awesome guy. And I'm looking over here. Why? Because that's where my other monitor is. And I want to make sure I bring up the right stuff because I've got the wrong screen up. There we go. So when I share this, we won't have what was up there, which was StreamYard. I'm going to bring you up now, or at least your website. One of them. So this is not your website. This is LinkedIn, and somebody popped in. Let's get rid of that and show what we can see there. Now, to help people understand and see this better, I'm going to add something to it, so bear with me. And this is the actual URL for the LinkedIn right there, linkedin.com/in/Frank Agin. That's what you do. A little bit about what you're doing here. It talks about AmSpirit Business Connections, and you can connect with Frank here, right?
Yep, sure.
And you've got a bunch of great content, and you have 19,853 followers. I think you're somebody that I should be connected to.
I
I
think
am.
we are.
But other people, if they're not connected with you, they're silly. They should, because listen to what he just said. You never know who he might be able to introduce you to, and there's no strings attached with Frank. And then your business site here, let me change this, is right there. You have a few others, but I didn't want to confuse people with too much. Just as a couple of places where people can get to you.
Yeah.
You want to talk about this a little bit?
Well, that's my central hub for what I call all things Frank Agin.
Okay.
Shows the books I've written. You can look down. It shows there's a podcast or podcasts. I have two podcasts. I have a weekly, which is me just sharing ideas and insights on professional relationships, and then I have a daily where it's a 1 minute little insight that I'll share out. But it's a quick way to find my Facebook, find my Twitter, my office phone number's on there, my email address is on there. What I find, Phil, is people like to communicate in all sorts of different ways. There are
Yeah.
people who just love being on LinkedIn and communicating on LinkedIn, and that's not really my preference, but I'm happy to meet them there if that's where they're comfortable. For
Yeah.
me, I love email because I can color code and I can put reminders on emails, and it's really kind of hard in the LinkedIn messaging system to do anything like that.
Yes. But what I like what you're saying about that is make it easy for people to show up where they are comfortable showing up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Let me push some buttons here and bring us back. There we are.
All right. Great.
If you were to suggest, or maybe, suggest 1, 2, or 3 of your favorite things to do as a networker that would benefit the people that are watching.
Well, the one thing I always tell people is, well, let me just tell a quick story, just
Sure,
to give
go
some
ahead.
context here. There's a famous anthropologist out there. Her name is Margaret Mead, and she was teaching a class, and one of the students asked, "What was the first sign of human civilization? At what point did you realize that humans were something special about them?" And she thought for a second. People were, probably postulating in their mind, well, it was fire, it was tools, it was weapons. And her answer was a healed femur. Now, the femur is the bone that connects the knee to the hip. And without modern medical care, it takes about 6 weeks for that to heal. And she went on to explain that in the animal world, you don't find animals with healed femurs, because when an animal breaks its femur, it's a death sentence. It can't move, it can't get water, it can't eat. It's a slow, agonizing starvation sort of death. But when we found humans that had healed femurs, what that suggested is that while they couldn't move, somebody stayed behind to care for them. And if you stop and think about that, again, Steve Jobs connecting the dots backwards, the humans that were willing to stay behind and help another human were more likely to survive because they ensured that their numbers would carry forward. And so we are hardwired as humans to help other humans. If you didn't have that propensity to want to help other people, you eventually perish, because if you if you left somebody behind, you were weaker. And if you stayed, ultimately you were stronger, and you also had somebody who was going to be help you as well. So I give that little background because a lot of what I tell people to do centers on, again, the go-giver mentality. Again, shout out to Bob Berg, is that you need to find ways to help other people. And that we as humans are always looking for individuals, not just to help us, but who are helping. So when people ask me, what should I do to network? I say, you know what, find something you're passionate about and volunteer. Maybe it's your kid's school, maybe it's something in the community, maybe it's homelessness. It can be lots of things. Just find those opportunities and get out there and volunteer. Because when you go out and you volunteer, you're immediately rubbing elbows with people who've come out of their little corner of the world to do the same thing, and they know that you care. You care about the same thing. They will know you, like you, and trust you, and they'll figure out what a good opportunity is for you or ways that they can help you. But even people who aren't associated with that volunteer effort will look and say, okay, wow, Phil really enjoys that. He's really into that. He's really a giver. I need to have him in my world, even though I don't really care about that particular charity or that particular initiative. I just know that he's got to be a good person because of that. So that's certainly the first thing I suggest to people. Other things I suggest is, you and I meeting, right? It was just kind of we had a nice chat. You're not selling me, I'm not selling you. It's just, let's learn about each other. You're on my radar. I'm, find ways to help you, and I'm on your radar. And, so have those conversations, and don't, people are like, well, who should I be talking to? Don't worry about being strategic about it, because you'll be wrong. The people I have, in looking back, the people who have brought me the most are the people I would say, if I were a betting man, would bring me the least, and vice versa. It's just, for whatever reason, I need to get out and meet that big business icon because he or she will be the person that will solve all my problems. Well, you know what? They have lots of people doing that. And so you're just another person coming out of the woodwork to try and get a little bit of their pixie dust, if you will.
Right.
Why not devote your attention to the person who's in job transition? Help them land a position, because they'll remember you, because few people will spend the time with them. So those are just a couple of things, but they all relate back to that moment of helping people when they're in ultimate need.
That's powerful. And it reminds me of one thing, then we'll wrap up. And that is, if you ever been in a environmental situation, a snowstorm, a flooding, or anything, it's amazing how people come together to serve total strangers to make their world a little bit better because of the adversity that they're experiencing. Like, it could be like, I was stuck with my car one time, and it was a freak snowstorm, and total strangers were going around in their truck trying to help find people that needed help. Or when we had a flood here a bunch of years ago, people that were on the floodplain there were water in the house, and they had to get rid of stuff in the house. And actually, was a friend of mine. She's the director of the southern region of BNI, and she put it out there. And I'm not even a BNIer, and I thought, well, yeah, I'm going to help Moji out. So we went and helped these people. I didn't know who they were, but it was the right thing to do. And I didn't get any monetization out of any of that stuff. Like you said, it's not always about that. It's how you show up and how you feel when you support and help other people. And I think because of that, people like some things. Not everybody likes me, by the way, but the ones that do, that get what I'm about, we have that synergy. And then that's when everything starts to connect and you get an introduction to somebody you could help.
Yep. Anyway, that's it.
That brings us to the end. So if you'll just hang out for a little bit, I'll be right back. And I want to thank you for making it possible to have you making your calendar fit the show in. I much appreciate it, even though
thank you for having me. Yeah,
it was fun. It was fun. I learned some new things, but I also was reminded about a bunch of different things, that it's really important to build a relationship and not expect anything out of it. Don't do it with conditional. Do it unconditionally. Be like a dog. I mean, they love you and us unconditionally. So if you like what this is about, please share it out with other people. Let them know that the Business Renovator is here. And if you know of somebody who has a story that might be shy or might be proud, it doesn't matter. Make an introduction. Let's have a conversation and share their message around the world. Before we leave, I always like to bring on something that I think is really powerful and important. It's right here. It was a reminder that everybody is really unique and truly wonderful in our own way. So continue being your wonderful self. Until next time, I'm Coach Phil with the Business Renovator.
I get shit done, I have fun. It's my time and I'm the one. I'm breaking